Hey, what's up, classic TV fans? My name is Rick 9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about I Love Lucy. More specifically, about a saying that Ricky said that everyone knows about. Whether you're familiar with Spanish or not, mira que tiene cosa is something that we all remember Ricky Ricardo said on I Love Lucy. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, talk about a few episodes where he actually says it and what it means, because there's a lot of misinformation about this, and this comes from myself, a native Spanish speaker. So I'll just tell you the truth. There's no reason for me to make up anything about it, and believe me, a lot of people do speak Spanish and watch my videos, and I mean, they could definitely advocate for what I'm saying here. So let's get right to it. If you like videos just like this, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and to subscribe. It's the only way I can continue making these videos, keep them free, and keep pumping them out to you. So thank you so much. Now, I say this in a lot of my translation videos that we always have the literal translation, and then we also have the equivalent translation, which probably is always the best thing when you talk about translating. You want to have the equivalent message and not so much the exact, but I'm going to give you the exact literal translation as well. But that brings a problem, because when you think about mira que tiene cosa, if you actually translate the words, here's what you get. Mira is look, and then que is what, tiene is have, cosa is thing. So look what has thing. And of course, that's gibberish. That's nonsense. That doesn't really mean anything, which is why the literal doesn't help us at all. In fact, this is a common saying more in Cuba versus other countries like Mexico or Spain and so forth. So we have to look at it through Cuban eyes. Why is this? Well, of course, Desi Arnaz, the actor, was Cuban, and so he's bringing this Cuban flair to the show by saying this. And it all has to do, by the way, when Lucy messes up, whenever she makes a mistake, when she louses up the plan, or when she makes up this big, basically, explosion of craziness, or when she has a crazy stunt that she pulls, he would say, mira que tiene cosa esta mujer, and vice versa. Depending on what happened, he would fill in the gaps and continue what he's saying. For example, let me give you one here. Ricky says, mira que tiene cosa la mujer esta. He said this once, which means, in English, how do you like this woman? Now, when we say like, we don't mean I like that person, I don't like them. We're not saying that. It's like, how do you like this situation? Or isn't this situation likable? Obviously, it's not, right? It's kind of a negative there. So it's colloquial, right? You're expressing both something that you can't believe, so being incredulous, and exasperation, the idea of, oh goodness, there's no hope. All hope is lost. We are doomed, right? All of the above. Now, I've even seen this translated at some places online, and people who obviously don't really know Spanish too well, they say something like, can you believe it? However, that's not really going all the way to the Spanish and the meaning there, because it's actually not giving the full indication of what is going on. Again, this is a saying kind of like if I say, oh, cool in English. How do you translate that to Spanish? You can't say something like with a low temperature, right? Cool has another meaning. Cool has a meaning of, wow, I like it. This is likable. I agree. We all agree this is likable, right? It's kind of a fuzzy translation, but as people who speak English, we understand. But when we look at Spanish, mira que tiene cosa makes sense, but it's a lot harder to explain in English. In fact, the way that I would say it, and the way that I would agree, I would best say it to all of you, if we're taking a look at the equivalent meaning of mira que tiene cosa, it's simply this. How do you like that? Right? And if we would translate that phrase that I just said into Spanish, it would not make any sense. But we all understand, how do you like that? Right? Which, again, isn't really asking you how do you like that. It's saying this is preposterous, right? Like, this is crazy. Can you believe it? Something similar to that regard. So essentially, what's amazing about this is that mira que tiene cosa means nothing if you translate it, but it's all in the equivalent meaning of the phrase and the context of what is actually going on in the situation, where you get the meaning of what Ricky is saying in different situations. So let's talk about this. There's a scene, of course, where Lucy steals the footprints from John Wayne. And what does Ricky say? He says, mira que tiene una cosa, de ir al frente de Grauman Chinese Theater and robarse el footprints de John Wayne. It's like if you speak English, you have no idea what's happening. You get an idea because he says Grauman's Chinese Theater, he says John Wayne, you know something bad is happening, so you can kind of fill in the gaps to what's going on. So I'm going to continue with what I was saying. He says, how do you like that? Going in the front of Grauman's Chinese Theater and stealing the footprints of John Wayne. That's the easiest translation, and that's what would make most sense to the English. Now, this is really interesting. I don't think anyone has ever noticed this, but if you go to the episode where Lucy goes off to Florida from season 6, where she goes with Ethel and the quote-unquote hatchet murderess, right? They have to change that tire, and Lucy says, remember, Lucy was not a native Spanish speaker. She spoke it actually not too well. She had a really, really thick accent when she spoke Spanish, but she's trying to make fun of Ricky, and she says, mira que tiene cosa loca la goma esta. Basically, she butchered it, okay? But if you kind of try to figure out what she's saying, she says goma, G-O-M-A, which is actually rubber. So you could refer it to a tire, and actually goma is actually in some countries, it is the equivalent of the word tire, which is kind of cool. That's how the script reads. And so I don't know if that was on purpose. I'm guessing that is perfect. Kind of saying, look at this crazy tire, what it did. You know, how do you like that? Look at this crazy tire, which is interesting, even though she butchers it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but there's kind of a double meaning there, and I think that's pretty genius and only very, very, very few people would pick up on. Another one is where little Ricky gets a dog, and of course there is a lot of chaos in trying to take care of the dog Fred, and Ricky says, mira que tiene cosa, and he says, el perro este no le gusta la casa de perro. And that's interesting because he says, how do you like that? This dog, he kind of repeats it, this dog does not like the house of the dog, or this dog does not like the doghouse, simply as that. And Lucy says, stop jabbering at me in a foreign tongue, right? But that gives you an idea that it's kind of the start of a phrase of saying, oh my goodness, how do you like that? And then insert situation, right? Which I think is great. I think a lot of people understood this. I want to know your thoughts down below. Did you know what this meant? Did mira que tiene cosa make sense to you when you heard it, if you're only an English speaker, or maybe you spoke Spanish and understood it? When I was a little boy, of course I knew Spanish, but when I heard it, it was just like mira que tiene cosa. It's like it was more like, look at this kind of thing. And he's mad because you could see his expressions. And so it came through. That's what I like, that even though you didn't speak one word of Spanish, if that was your situation, you could understand what was going on. And that made it perfect. That made it such a great show. It's just so genius in the way it was written, and it was perfect for everyone. And the last one I'll talk about, where in this episode they talk about more money, and Lucy says, you're such a peso pincher, right? Which basically means he's cheap, right? We know peso and pincher. But then Ricky converts it, kind of making fun of her joke, and says, mira que tiene cosa de decir que yo soy un peso pincher. Now, again, you know he's mad. Mira que tiene cosa, peso pincher. So you understand, and essentially what it's saying is, how do you like that? Saying that I am a peso pincher, right? That I'm cheap, basically. So see, it makes so much sense, and it's genius if you think about it. So I hope this was interesting to you. Not all the scenes exactly match what I'm saying, and that's just because I'm trying to actually focus on the translations and what is being said, because I think a lot of people don't really know what is being said, and a lot of people struggle with trying to translate mira que tiene cosa and essentially just say, how about that? Or how do you like that? How do you like that, I think, is perfect. It fits well, it makes sense, and that's colloquial as well in English, so it's a perfect fit. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you all next time, and don't forget, everyone, be hopeful. A really big thank you to all my Diamond tier patrons: Jerry D, Stacy L, Scott R, Citizen Kane 359, Jennifer P, David D, Kevin K, Sally N, and Vito L. If you want to be on this list or receive exclusives as a great way to support the channel, visit my Patreon description below. Thank you.